Good afternoon, good evening, good something. What time is it? I don't even know. I don't even know.
It's 5 o'clock somewhere. All
Yeah,
right. So today, we got how to structure a real estate team part three
right.
on the turd. How to hire your ISA.
Yes. And it's
So
not sexy. It's not sexy. It doesn't even sound like a fun topic, but you're going to have to go through this. And so you might as well have a little bit of understanding of how to do it. If you're going to grow a real estate team, an ISA is going to be one of the next things that are going to be pertinent on the roadmap. I almost didn't want to do this. I told Jake, I was like, well, if they use Market Maker, they don't need an ISA. He's like, but it's the next logical thing. And he's right, because there are scenarios and instances in which you want an ISA outside of Market Maker. Anyway, for example, you're going to do circle prospecting, right? Calling FSBOs or expireds, like just having an ISA in the arsenal is very highly recommended. You don't have to start like that, right? You could start with Market Maker. But if you watch the past 3 episodes, first one was obviously getting solid lead gen that you could set the watermark on as far as the metrics and conversion, have consistency. Next was hiring your first assistant, right? And having them kind of straddle the fence between assistant, listing coordinator, closing coordinator, possibly even something to do with the finance side, right? Like bookkeeping. And now we're going to go into the ISA side: how to hire, how to train, and maintain an inside sales agent. Because one of the things that happens when you have a high level, high volume lead gen, is your time is no longer best spent making those calls yourself, right? And so this like I could go back and forth between an assistant or hire an ISA first person. Like I want to have the business coming in, you know what I mean, before I step to the commitment of the overhead as far as the assistant, but right things in the right order. So let's dive in, right?
it's I would say your ISA, you could shortcut the process a little bit of getting stuff that you really, really, really don't want to do. Because there's probably some people that would prefer to do some extra paperwork versus handle all the calls with your leads coming in. You know what I mean? But that's probably a bad business decision. But I could understand why people do it. But let me go back to what you said 2 seconds ago or 2 minutes ago now. It not being a sexy topic. I totally get it to most, but I've had personal conversations with people that have hired, I don't know, 10, 20 plus people in an ISA role, and they had zero currently working for them. So this is a painful one to get wrong, and also, it's just like the personality you hire, the what they're looking to accomplish, right? Because there's some people that it becomes like a feeder system into the agent side of things, right? Others, it becomes like this really high turnover rate thing because people don't want to do it for how much you pay them and how much upside they have. So, like, getting this right, there are all kinds of people that have messed this up.
Yeah.
Um, and so, like, this is really helpful because, like, I personally have talked to people and sold a boot camp that was 4 days of getting your ISA trained and you knowing how to manage them for $12,500 for 4 days.
Yeah.
And people were like, hell yeah, let's do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. A lot of
So,
value in the stuff that we're going to go over right now, for sure. Yeah.
shortcut, shortcut,
Yeah.
shortcut.
And those
Oh,
people who were willing to pay for that had already experienced all the pain, so they knew the value. You know what I mean? And I
yeah.
think that's the difference, really.
To them, this topic's sexy as hell.
Yeah, yeah. Next week we'll go into hiring, agents for your team, because that's obviously the next logical step. More fun to talk about, which is why I wanted to do that. But let's dive in. So I think the first place where you would start, right, in hiring an ISA, essentially would be creating the ad. But prior to that, right, you would have to have for sure the job function and the day-to-day structure. So what that starts with, in my mind, is the scripts, right? So you'd want to have the proper scripts that your ISA is going to use in order to, make these calls and convert these leads. Now, in order to have the right script, you have to have the right set of leads that they're going to be calling. So if they're going to be calling internet leads, you can use pretty much one script, right? You can use a script that is basically between both buyer and seller. It doesn't matter. They're going to be able to ebb and flow between the two. They need to understand the psychology behind it. And so you have to have that done first. You have to have that script ready. And personally, it's my belief that you need to have spent some time on the phone with that script so you can understand the process, understand what it takes to convert a lead. And you're not going to be able to lead if you don't know how to, do it yourself, in my opinion. And so, not very effectively anyway in this business. And so, that would be the requisite prior step, right? Have the scripts,
Yep.
use the scripts, know the outcome of the scripts, set the watermark of the scripts, so that you can basically put this person in a scenario that they're going to succeed. Nothing sucks worse for me as an employer than putting somebody in a job and then realizing these things after I put them in the job, because you look unprofessional, right? The person is going to lose faith in you right away, like this is pandemonium, and you want to have this already ready to go. The next thing is what they're going to be using as far as the dialer is concerned, right? What technology? So you need to have some training around that. And if it's still just you, right, you probably should create these things beforehand. I would make a little video on how to use the technology so that they can watch the video, right? And then as far as the script is concerned, it's really a simple training process for that. For me, I always have people hand write it out 3 times. Then we go and do some role playing. Then, okay, it's time for you to get on the phones. And when they get on the phones, you need to have the ability to listen. You need to have the ability to record each call. We like to use Zoom, right? Zoom's VoIP phone service works really dynamite for that. I mean, you were talking about being on a call today using Zoom.
Yeah, it is great if you have any kind of you can't be there and they're in the office or however you got that set up, because you can see whenever they're on the phone too, which is nice.
Yeah.
Because if they're not on the phone, there's problem number one.
Yeah.
But being able to whisper or take over calls and stuff is crucial at that point. But the feedback loop is even better, right? Especially at the beginning of just being able to have them hear things, because they're going to be able to handle the script pretty easily. That's going to get, but it's like the skills of this question, right? Like there's a little objection handling that's going to happen. And I think the biggest mistake that most people make when they hire an ISA is like they think that they're just like they're going to figure it out themselves, right? Like they're not. If they're taking that role, they are probably not at the same skill level you are or anywhere close yet. And it's going to be your job to develop that. You're not going to be able to just find some bad to the bone salesperson that's just going to come in here and flourish and build it up for you, right? Like that's not what you
If
can
agents
expect.
try to do that and try to hire people to do that, and then the outcome is it doesn't work. And when you do something and then you fail at it like that, a lot of times in the business we just like put a bow around like, oh, that doesn't work, and we just leave it over there, and that doesn't work out. And unfortunately, it's just a big limitation to success and growth. And so doing it right out of the gate is huge. You can't leave it up to somebody else, right? You can't
Nope.
hire that person and have them build it out for you. You have to know what to expect, what you want, what the outcome is, and you got to get the right person. And so let's talk about the right person, okay? Because I feel like that's a huge part of the process. You're going to want to have a good ad, right? That clearly defines the position, talks about the pay, right? Like I put out an email recently, like, hey, I thought people weren't coming because of the whole COVID and unemployment thing. I tweaked the ad multiple times, and then all of a sudden I got like 150 some odd applicants in the first 30 days. I gave it to another friend in a different market. She was in the same boat. We're talking about her ISA team. She's like, man, I can't get anybody to even apply. I said, here, have this ad. And so she went through the ad, and it was like 15 applicants over that weekend. So if you want access to the ad, just let us know. I don't know, drop us a comment or something, and we'll get you access to the ad. It's a pretty great ad. Obviously works. When you get these people in for an interview, personally, what I'm looking for is some experience on the phones in some nature, right? Like they've been in some kind of a telemarketing position in the past. They don't have to have a vast amount of experience. And then the next thing is you want to give them the DISC profile, and you want to make sure that you're hiring the right person with the right skill set for the right job. Personally, I'd like to see mostly a lot of D or I. I tend to favor the I side on these calls. Yeah, but I also want to see some S&C because I want them to be detail oriented. I want them to be able to keep track of their metrics, and I want them to be able to create, a little system for themselves. Right? We don't have to do all the thinking, but of making the calls and making the follow-up calls and be able to refine and tweak that process as they go. And so this would be part of the conversation in the interview, in addition to the DISC profile. And once you got those two things down, again, like if you remember any of it, just try to make them a high I for the job, right? And then obviously some type of experience for ISA work. Now you have the ability to put them in the position, right? You're going to be able to train them. You're going to be able to have them watch the video on whatever technology you're using to facilitate the ISA position. One of the reasons why Market Maker came into existence is because I had to have like 3 or 4 things up at once to do this job, right? Like I had to have a dialer, I had to have the back end of my website, I had to have my CRM. We also had another branded and unbranded website. I have to have the back end of that one. I have to like every call, like go in and update all these things, it's a real inefficient process. And so I was like, man, there's got to be a better way. There wasn't. And then that was like part of the idea behind, like there's got to be something better out there. But train them on that. And then you want to put them on the phones. And so let's talk about the metrics of what you want to really monitor as far as their productivity is concerned. Jake, you're better at this than I am. Why don't you take this one?
So there's 2 kind of things that I judge off of. You got metrics to make sure that the effort is there, right?
Yes.
And it's not, because when there's not an effort, the first thing you have to go to is the systems, right? Did you skip some steps in setting up the technology or making them efficient? But if you tested this yourself and did it all the way through, then you should have the benchmarks of how many calls it should be a day, right?
Yeah.
And
That's
so
the effort, right? The number of calls per day is the effort that they put in.
effort. Everything else is a skill, right? Or a strategy type thing. So you're looking at how many calls are being made a day. You want to have a benchmark that they average, right? Obviously, if they talk to more people, they're not able to make as many calls, which the end result you're actually looking for is appointments here, right? And the only way to get appointments is through conversations. So you want to maximize each step along the way here. But again, you should have benchmarks. So if you have, let's say, $300 a day, I would anticipate normally you're anywhere from really high end is probably 25% contact rate into a conversation.
Okay.
I would say more of an average is somewhere between 10 and 15% of your calls. So if you make 300 calls, you should talk to 30 to 45 people a day.
Okay.
And depending on if these are super old leads or if these are fresh leads that are coming in and you're hitting them pretty early, the appointment rate's going to vary a little bit too. But you want to maintain, uh, and again, it's going to come from the source of the leads at this point, right? If you're just calling data, if you're having them call through data, it's going to be a little bit different because that's going to take a lot more skill rather than, hey, you just filled something out on our website and we're giving you a call back and going through the script that way, right?
Right.
And setting up some time to have a conversation. But that's going to be the skill part. That's the biggest thing that you can have the impact on is the rate of appointment, right? So from there to there, and then like when we had it here in Dallas, another big rate that we took um, uh, into consideration was the nurture rate as well,
Right.
right? So the people that showed some interest but just weren't with time wasn't ready to have a conversation or meet with somebody, then they would go into that nurture pipeline, right? That we had built out, and we had ISAs celebrate and nurture just as much as we celebrated an appointment because we knew they were worth that much money.
And to be clear, a nurture is like somebody who has indicated interest. Maybe their timing was a little bit out, right? And so I think that's an important differentiation there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we would actually confirm it where it was the criteria for our nurture
Yeah.
was that they were looking to make a move in the next 12 months,
Right.
and they were not working with another real estate agent.
Okay. Which is yeah. So in a nutshell, number of dials, right, which are accounts, number of spoke to, so the ratio of contact rate, and then fixed feedback there is what I mean. Then the next one obviously is going to be the
The
spoke
appointments.
to appointment, which is the conversion rate. I think it's you, the feedback. So from there, right, you need to have obviously the pay scale that you pay these people, the hours in which they're going to work, and a behavior compensation alignment component, which is essentially the bonus structure for when you hit pay dirt, right? So you want to think about the behavior that you want to drive, okay? And so the behavior that you want to drive is obviously going to be the appointments themselves, and then the outcome of the appointments. Because if you just leave it to appointments, I remember my first ISA. My first ISA. Let me tell you how I hired this guy, okay? Because this is a good story. I was at the bar and I was arguing with this dude, and he was arguing with me about why my friend should move to St. Louis. Now this was my wingman, and I'm like selfish. I'm like, this dude don't need to move to St. Louis, you know. And so we're arguing back and forth. I was like, man, you're a pretty good arguer. I said, yeah, what are you doing? Where do you work? You know, he's like, I don't work. I'm in between jobs or something. I was like, well, come try this. And so I put him on the phones, and he was Dynamite ISA because he was just kind of a mouthpiece, gab kind of guy. But I had him incentivized by appointments, and so he would steamroll these people into appointments. Like they would just do it to get off the phone with them. And if you're on the other end of that, right, especially if it's a listing appointment, you're getting all ready, pulling up comps, you know what I mean, driving all the way out to this appointment, and then you find out it's a dud, like the dude shouldn't have said it, right? Like that's not going to be fun, and you're going to want to quit that process. And so you need to have some quality control around these appointments. But the way that I would begin with that would be, hey, listen, if these people are ready to list, or if we list their home, right, that's one bonus. If we list it and sell it and I make some money, that's another bonus. So the eye is on quality as far as the appointment is concerned. It's not just I'm showing up to stamp out my widget. Here's the result of that widget. So you got to think through that, right? And so I had him specifically on a few different bonus structures of that type, and also a percentage, right? Which you have to be licensed to pay a percentage of the real estate commission. So keep that in mind. So you might want to think through that if you're not hiring somebody who's licensed, which you don't have to be licensed in most states if they're not talking specifically about a property or positioning themselves to be, whatever the term is escaping me, representing, you know what I mean, that seller, for example, right?
Right.
I wouldn't personally get somebody that's licensed because it's going to cost you more money out of the gate. But I would think through that commission structure. And so you want to bonus them based on the number of appointments. You want to bonus them based on the outcome of the appointments, and then you want to bonus them also based on when you make money, so that they make money. And you need to make it, like Jake was saying, a fairly compelling opportunity. Otherwise, you're just going to have a lot of turnover. Most telemarketing places, they just thrive on turnover. That's what they do. They're just constantly, it's a revolving door. It's not fun as far as a management position is concerned. So you want to get real people, and you want to pay them with real opportunity if you don't have real money to begin.
Right. You know what Kinder used to call his ISA? Who was with him for like 9 years or something crazy?
No.
Director of First Impressions.
Oh yeah, I've seen that before.
She got promoted when he was officially kind of moving out of his brokerage in Oklahoma. Like she was making a ton of money at that point, because he knew how much she was worth, right? Like it was just like whatever she had to do, but she kind of ran the ship, you know what I mean? And that's the cool part is when you do this right, you can really have a really, really good partner in crime for growing your team. Because one of those other things that you don't really consider, but you start seeing it when it is like at scale, is when you have ISAs that are excited about making more money. So they want their appointments to actually turn into a closing. There's some accountability that will happen within the team. So I used to see that all the time here, where an ISA would be like, after a big appointment, they set an appointment with a nice big old listing, right? They're waiting at the end of it. How did it go? What happened? You know what I mean? Like you had that, from an agent point of view, you have that, like, not only am I trying to not mess this up for myself, but I also got this person over here that I'm trying to make sure that it happens for too, because as that grows and it becomes kind of a family type atmosphere, everybody wants to win,
Well, that's the thing too that I wanted to add about this. You look at it as a cost initially, and it is at first, but it's an investment, and it should become a revenue producing position, right? Not a cost, overhead position. And I was reading an article the other day. It's like if you want job security, make sure you're in a revenue producing position. You know what I mean? Because you're going to be the last to be ever let go, and it's true.
Be a depositor, not a withdrawer in the company.
Yes, yes,
And
yes.
and
That's what will essentially happen with this position, and it'll become such a revenue producing position. You'd be like, man, what if I added another one, right?
and that was part of the model in the ISA boot camp that Jeff would go through of like, hey, here's the blueprint, right? You should be in the red, probably in the first 3-5 months max, and then you should go pretty far in the black. And on average, if you have a really good producing ISA, they should put you in the black 60 to 80 grand a year.
That's
So how much money they brought in, how much money went out to them, right? That's how much the company profited. So then you're like, okay, hey, if I want to make 600 grand, I guess I just need to have 10 of these babies. You know what I
yeah.
mean? Like you
The
start
same thing.
thinking like that.
And here's the other deal too, everybody. I mean, you don't think about this, but this is the value proposition for joining your team, right? Like all those things that suck that you've been dealing with, right? You haven't been making no money in the real estate business, right? Here's the reasons why. You know what I mean? How would you feel if I just set you up with appointments on your calendar on a regular basis? And by the way, taught you how to convert them. Do you think that that would be a better, outcome for you and your family in the real estate business? Yeah, well, that's what we do here, right? And so it's a huge differentiator. It's also a huge differentiator when you're sitting on a listing appointment and you're talking about why they should do business with you, right? Like I also have this part of my business and these people who do this, and you're getting all this for the same price, right? Doesn't cost you any extra. Then do a business with the solo agent over there, and which one do you think would have a better outcome, right? And it's just leading them to that logical conclusion. And so it is, you were right in talking about this, Jake. It's a paramount, part of the process. And even if you're using a market maker, it still should be something that you're considering in the long term, because again, we don't call FISBOs, we don't call expired, we're not doing circle prospecting for our customers. And eventually, what happens in marketing, especially in smaller markets, you'll hit the law of diminishing returns, where you can't spend another buck to generate another lead. Well, then what do? Well, you look for these other pillars. Well, let's start cornering the physical market. Let's start cornering the expired market. Let's start cornering the circle prospecting market, and that's essentially the process. But you have to have this in place to do it. And one of the things that we didn't discuss, which eventually you'd want to do, is hire somebody to manage the managers, right? You need to have an operations manager. That honestly is like where your life changes if you want to start to pull yourself out of the day to day, or even possibly out of production, right? I remember having a conversation with a friend, and he said, if I were going to start a new business today, the first hire I'd make would be an operations manager. Wow, that's really interesting. I think it depends on the type of business. You know what I mean? And essentially, your first assistant is going to operate in the capacity of kind of a lower tiered operations manager. And so, back to the ISA side of things, this is definitely something that changed my career. Right, once I figured out how easy it was and how low the cost was. Right, like there was no real cost, because again, it became a revenue producing position in my company. When I went to rebuild my team again after the like just catastrophe of the recession. Obviously, this was one of the very first hires I made. I'm not going to make these calls. You know what I mean? So let's get somebody in here who will. And it's a good job too, especially I tend to hire younger people, and it made them feel good. Like I work at a real estate company, I'm an equipment center for a real estate team in town, equipment center for a real estate brokerage, right? Like it's a good thing to have as a conversation with their friends. Sounds a lot better than a teletech or something, And by the way, they can make more money, and they're getting access to like we're talking about opportunity. Like, look, if you want to have a career in real estate, this is one of the skills I had to learn. So you're going to get it firsthand. By the way, you're going to get paid for it right away as you're doing it. I didn't get it, as I was doing it. I had to figure it out and then eventually get paid for it. So that's a nice way to run this thing.
And what's fascinating is when it comes down to recruiting, like, and this comes from being in times that I've had somebody that I really wanted to hire, and they told me no, and they
Yeah,
didn't know how to respond. You know what I mean?
yeah,
It's like, was the opportunity big enough? Was the status enough? And
yeah.
this goes
Right.
right,
Yeah,
right. This goes back to, if you've built your business the right way and you have lead generation and systems in place, and you have a brand in your marketplace that you're building, right?
Mhm.
Then and you're starting to get noticed, and you're doing enough business to where the team is the only way to continue to scale. Like you have some status in the market already because of the branding you're doing for your business, because you're doing that the right way, right? So you're hitting on one of those pillars, and that will help you grow your team faster too with good people. Because otherwise you have to hang your hat on whatever brokerage you're with or whatever it may be, which I hate having to do that. Because just personally, I think keeping your identity different from your brokerage is paramount to your success ongoing.
Well, sure, without a doubt, yeah. You want to definitely brand you, build you. You're the business, right? Not the broker.
Exactly.
I did want to say a word of caution. One of the things that I tried to do to shortcut, I don't remember specifically when I tested this or why I didn't test this, but I went on like Upwork and I hired some Filipino outsourced callers because I was told that they didn't have a. I think it was from a coaching group that I was with. They suggested they had a non descript accent or like an unidentifiable accent. You know what I mean? But these people were calling in the middle of Missouri. It did not go over well, and the metrics weren't there. Luckily, I knew what to look for. You know what I mean? But I think that people do that sometimes still. They'll be like, "Oh, box check, right? Got an ISA. That's happening." Don't do that. If you were even going to ever possibly consider that, I would at a minimum like try to get a professional company that manages that process for you. But even then, the outcome's not near as good as having a body in the office that's doing it, which by the way is creating more activity, more synergy, right? More energy in your organization. Now you've got two people showing up every day, plus you, right? You're starting to build a real business, right? And everybody's there. We've got a collective goal, right? We know what we're supposed to do. We know how we're supposed to do it. And that's a foundation. From
Yep.
there, the rest is literally piling on agents and then more staff to facilitate those agents as you grow. And you should have, some specific milestones in place as far as the percentages that you're going to want to keep and reinvest so that hey, it's time to hire another ISA, right? We're doing this revenue. We've got this percentage budgeted towards that specific position, right? So, essentially we're over double. Let's go ahead and pull the trigger on the next one, right? So you're leading with revenue instead of cost as much as you can.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love it.
Good stuff, man. Like I said, not the sexiest topic, but it is going to be one that's definitely a life changer. If I were going into any real estate business, personally, like there would be no way I wouldn't have an ISA as fast as I could possibly afford one.
Amen to that.
Yeah. Even
That
if
is the
I was on a team, I'd be like digging into the ISA and the metrics and what the expectations would be for me as far as the allocation of them that I got. You know what I mean? So good stuff. Well, hopefully we added value to you. As always, if you want some help with this stuff, go to marketmakercall.com. Watch a short video on how we help you generate both buyer leads, seller leads, nurture those leads in a way that elevates your status and authority in the mind of those leads, and then ultimately delivers them to your calendar as an appointment. It is exclusive. It's one agent per zip code, marketmakercall.com. Check it out.
Bada bing, bada boom. And as we always say at Market Maker, you are always just one pre-position appointment away.
Every day. Make it a great day.
Go get it.